Okay. So just jumping right in, what attracted you to playing the role of Barbara Gordon?
Yeah, I would say the iconic nature of the character, um, just how much history she has in the DC world, and how well loved she is by the fans, what she represents for a lot of those fans. It was, yeah, it was kind of a dreamy opportunity for me.
Okay, and what are some of the things you did to kind of get into character?
There were several conversations between the writers, the showrunner, and myself, Brenton as well, and just kind of flushing out who this woman is at this time in her life. And just really getting to like live in her reality and live in her world. I spent what time I could in a wheelchair to wrap my head around what that life really is like, to the extent that I could, knowing there's really no way to know that until you're in that position. I spent um, some time in conversation with our disability consultant, Santina Muha, who is chairbound, and she was incredibly helpful and available to us if any of us had questions, the writers or myself had questions, and just talking to her about what her life is like in a chair. Um, those are some of the things. Yeah.
And what, if anything, do you feel you have in common with Babs?
Mm. I would say, being newly disabled within just a couple of years, and navigating the world in a different, in that way. Being a woman in an industry that is typically male driven. Let's see. In some ways, also following my father's line of work. My dad is a songwriter and a musician, and so I've spent some time in that world as well, in the music industry, and being a songwriter and a musician, and understanding on some level what that is like, for other people to be sort of maybe feel like eyes are on you to live up to some expectations, or to, not even in a critical way, but to sort of watch what you do similarly or differently than your father in the same profession. I could relate in that way too. Having some unrequited love experience, and someone that you have some conflict with that you work really well with in a partnership, the way that Barbara and Dick Grayson do, where there's a lot of history, a lot of love, and some heartbreak too. So,
actually, an excellent segue into my next question. What, if anything, can you tell fans about the relationship between Dick and Barbara and how they interacted with each other while they were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of that is pretty well documented in that, growing up, I think they have a very playful, sort of bit sarcastic, sort of tit for tat dynamic. Growing up, they were two teenagers who I think didn't relate as much to other peers as they did with each other. And Jim Gordon's relationship with Bruce Wayne really kind of lent itself to their bond, to Dick and Barbara's bond, and just kind of finding a bit of, what's the word I'm looking for, sort of refuge in each other in that way. Barbara was quite a bit more rebellious than Dick was. And I think that she sort of enticed him in ways to break the mold, but to go outside of Bruce's command, and I think that they really care deeply for one another, and they work really well together too. They know each other very well.
Okay, and are there any moments or scenes that Barbara has that you're allowed to share that you're particularly excited for fans to see?
I don't know what scenes I'm allowed to share. Let me think about that. There's a lot of scenes I'm excited about. I just don't know if I'm allowed to talk about them, to be honest. You might just have to watch the show. Yeah, it's exciting, getting to see Barbara in this role as GCPD commissioner, and finding that she has to learn to work with the Titans, and why she needs them, and that they need her in return. It's, it gets heated. It's intense.
Speaking of Barbara's potential relationship with the Titans, a lot of fans are really curious about how Barbara and Corey might interact with each other, being two very, very different people. What can you share about what dynamic, if any, they might have in the new season?
I think that there's quite a bit of just mutual respect between the two of them. I think initially they probably have to sort of size each other up a bit. They both are having to work with and rely on Dick, and so there's maybe some shared I don't want to say misery in that, but just that they can relate to each other in those ways. And I think that they just have mutual respect for each other in the positions that they're both in.
It's great to hear. It's good that the fans have aged beyond, no one wants to see Corey and Barbara fight over Dick. There's some cute fan art pictures of Corey and Barbara just talking about what a drama queen he is over bubbles.
Yeah.
And in the trailer, we saw that now Barbara has taken a very anti-superhero stance. Can you say if that's because of how her time as Batgirl ended, or if it's just because of how things have gone in Gotham over the years since Bruce became Batman?
Well, I think that her, the tragedy of, excuse me, I need some water. The tragedy that happened and that led to her becoming chairbound is, it's well known. She was shot by the Joker, paralyzed from the waist down. That experience with the Joker, and also the way that her father was killed, she obviously has her opinions about villains, and she's valid in her sort of motivation to eradicate villains from Gotham. I think that her experience as Batgirl surely lends itself to her opinion about superheroes as well, but I think that in general, she doesn't have anything necessarily against superheroes or against Dick, or to Corey or any of the other Titans as people. I think in some ways she feels very protective of them. Because she feels like the dynamic between the superheroes and the villains just perpetuates the violence in Gotham. It's a bit of a cat and mouse game, and the civilians of Gotham are sort of like used as bait and collateral and caught in the balance between that game in a sense between the superheroes and the villains. I feel like she feels like if the superheroes were not there to sort of, how I'm trying to say, how do I say this? That the villains would not be as driven if the superheroes weren't present. So it's not necessarily anti-superheroes as it is anti-villains, but she does feel like that dynamic between the two of them perpetuates the violence, I should say.
Got it. So I guess my next question would be whether she is Batgirl or the Oracle. Barbara Gordon is a character that holds a lot of history and a lot of significance for a lot of fans, whether they grew up watching the cartoons or read the comics. So I'm curious about what kind of response you've gotten from the fandom.
That I've seen, anyway, it's been mostly very positive. Seems like people are really excited and really ready for this character. I guess, there hasn't been a live action Barbara Gordon in about 20 years or so. So people are really excited. They're really invested for their own reasons. Whether it's, people from the disability community or otherwise, like you said, grew up with this character. It's been very positive so far. I'll be curious to see what the response is once the show airs.
Okay, and then I think just 2 more questions and I'll let you go. What are some standout episodes this season that Titans fans should look out for?
Wow, they're all really good for their own reasons. Oh man, standout episode. I'd say just the whole season. You can't. There's not one in this, in my opinion.
Okay, and my last question is, what have you personally taken away from your time working on this beloved series?
What is my takeaway? I feel like I had a really great answer for this last time. My takeaway. Yeah, it's been really cool to get to engage with the fans of the show. And obviously the cast of the show is amazing, and the crew and the writers and everybody involved with the show. It was such a gift to get to work with them. I think personally it would be what I was able to learn about the reality of people who are chair-bound. The conversations that I got to have with Santina and the ways that we incorporated that into Barbara's story. That's something I feel like I could learn about forever. There's never, you never learn enough about somebody else's reality unless you're in that same position. But I would say just my experience learning about that, it was incredibly informative. It was humbling, and I'm really truly in awe of people who navigate the world like that. I mean, their resilience and patience and strength, and that's a huge takeaway for me.
Well, those are all the questions I have for now, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me again.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.